Okay, students, this is a video review and answer key to your characterization author's intent practice sheet. So if you're watching this video, it's because you are going to complete the practice and want to have the answers to refer to when you're done. So I would suggest doing this practice one sample at a time. So the following sample questions will provide practice in completing the author's intent portion of your Power Focus assessment. For the answer and explanations to the questions below, please see this video, good job, that corresponds to the practice. So here we have the first sample. Please pause the video and complete this sample before moving on. Okay, go for it. All right, once you've completed sample 1, let's review it. Okay, so let's review. So here we have the excerpt, Mr. Potter, the Dark Lord has not returned from the dead, and anyone who says that he has is perpetuating lies. I will not have it. Tell me at once who is saying such things, and they will be punished accordingly. We are all perfectly safe, she said smugly. It was clear that her intention was to deceive the wizarding world into believing that Voldemort was not on the verge of attacking and that she was thrilled to have the opportunity to brainwash as many wizards as possible. So let's look at the first question. It asks, which of the following words does not aid in characterizing Professor Umbridge? So here we have 4 words. The first is smugly, the second is deceive, the third is attacking, and the fourth is brainwashing. So all of these apply to either our direct or indirect characterization. So she said smugly directly characterizes her as being smug. So it does aid in the characterization of her. Here it says that her intention was to deceive. This indirectly characterizes her through her thoughts. So, yep, that works to characterize her. Attacking. This attacking refers to Voldemort. Voldemort was not on the verge of attacking. Therefore, this verb refers to a different character. And therefore, this verb is actually indirectly characterizing Voldemort as opposed to Professor Umbridge. Therefore, attacking is our answer because it is not characterizing her. Now, brainwash, she was thrilled to have the opportunity to brainwash, also indirectly characterizes Professor Umbridge because it talks about a thought of hers. All right, so if you got answer C, then you are correct. Let's move to the next question. How is Professor Umbridge characterized? So the way that you figure this out is by looking at the different direct and indirect characterizations of Professor Umbridge. On the assessment, you're not going to have questions that build like this. So you might have this excerpt and just this question. Therefore, you're going to need to know to go in and identify the main characterization adjectives and verbs so that you can then figure out how she's being characterized. So say this question wasn't here, and instead we just read through and we found, oops, smugly, that's direct characterization, deceive, that's indirect, brainwash, that's also indirect. Now if we put these 3 words together, smug, deceive, brainwash, what does that get us to? Does it get us to capricious, eager, oops, inquisitive, or manipulative? So a problem you might run into with these characterization problems is that you don't actually know the meaning to all the words, which is very possible. I don't know anybody who knows all the words in the world, so you might encounter a couple you don't know. If that's the case, you need to do process of elimination. So you'd very likely be able to eliminate eager. She's not eager, she's not really excited to do something. That doesn't fit with smug, brainwash, and deceive. Inquisitive, if we know what this word means, inquisitive means questioning. And she's not asking questions. She's far too bossy. She'd much prefer just to tell people how it is. And that leaves us with capricious and manipulative. And at this point, you may know what manipulative means. manipulative means, and that means when you're kind of controlling and bossy and you trick people into doing things, which fits the words of deceive and brainwash, and even kind of goes with smug. So you would hopefully say, yes, manipulative is it. And therefore, even if you don't know what capricious means, you would say it's likely not the best answer because manipulative is a really good fit. Now, capricious means kind of like flighty and magical and fleeting, which Professor Umbridge is not. She's not magical nor fleeting. Therefore, manipulative is the correct answer. So if you answered D, you are correct. And you know that D is the answer because of the details of smugly, deceive, and brainwash. And those details characterize Professor Umbridge as being manipulative. All right, so now that we've reviewed the first sample, go ahead and pause this video again and complete the second sample. The reason why you should do one sample at a time is so that you can give yourself some room to improve if you don't get the questions right early on. So go ahead and do sample 2. All right, so let's review sample 2. So here it says, has everybody got a copy of the textbook? No one answered. I think we'll try that again, said Professor Umbridge. When I ask a question, I should like you to reply, yes, Professor Umbridge, or no, Professor Umbridge. So has everyone got a copy of the textbook? Yes, Professor Umbridge, rang through the room. Good, said Professor Umbridge. Turn to page 5 and read chapter 1. There will be no need to talk. All right, so based upon this excerpt, let's answer these questions. So here we have, which of the following words does not identify the type of teacher Umbridge is being characterized as? So in this excerpt, we see what kind of teacher Professor Umbridge is. And there's different details that work into that characterization of what type of teacher she is. And it's asking which of these words does not aid in that characterization. So here we have, so it's asking what does not identify. So what we first need to do is figure out how she's being characterized. So I don't see any direct characterization in here. I just see indirect. And so here we have her correcting the students, demanding that they call her Professor Umbridge, demanding that they say certain things, forcing them to respond. And then she also has them do a really mundane and boring task of reading, even though they're in class and they can read outside of class. And then she says there will be no talking. So here she's very strict. She's very bossy. She doesn't care about them being bored. She's not really concerned about her students. And therefore, let's look here. So when you are deciding upon words to identify what kind of character the character is, how they're being characterized, use the process of elimination. So haughty means kind of like snobbish and self-centered and proud. So that's definitely a possibility. Ineffective. Ineffective means not effective. She's definitely an ineffective teacher, so we can keep that one. Maternal. Now, maternal means motherly, maternal. And she definitely doesn't seem like a mom here. Maybe like a really mean mom. But like, she's not very caring, and she doesn't want to make sure the welfare of her students are met. Stern. Stern means serious and strict. She's definitely that. So with the question asking which of the words does not identify the type of teacher, we know it is C, maternal, because the characterization, it shows that she's bossy or haughty. It shows that she's not an effective teacher, so she's ineffective, and it shows that she's stern, and therefore maternal is your answer. Let's go to the next one. It asks, which of the following aspects of the excerpt do not aid in this characterization? And we've essentially gone over that. So it says, the students do not initially respond to her question. Does that help us understand who Professor Umbridge is? The students voluntarily respond to her request. Is that something that happens that shows who she is? Umbridge specifies that there will not be any talking in the classroom. Does that show who she is? Umbridge requires the students to read directly from the textbook during class. This shows that she is stern and ineffective. This shows that she is stern. This shows that the students don't like her. And that's really important. Remember, with indirect characterization, the way other characters react to the character is a way that the author can characterize the character. Therefore, that leaves B, which is our answer. The students voluntarily respond to her request. Now, first off, that's just not true. The students don't voluntarily do it. She makes them do it. Therefore, this answer should stand out just because it isn't true about the passage. But even if you didn't notice that it's not true, the idea that students are voluntarily would suggest that they like her, which does not fit into the way she's being characterized. She's being characterized as unlikable because she's kind of mean. So that makes B the answer. So now for your final practice, please pause the video and complete sample 3. Okay, so let's go over sample 3. It reads, the witch to the right of Fudge leaned towards Harry so that Harry saw her for the first time. He thought she looked just like a large pale toad. She was rather squat with a broad, flabby face, as little neck as Uncle Vernon, and a very wide, slack mouth. Her eyes were large, round, and slightly bulging. Even the little black velvet bow perched on top of her short, curly hair put him in mind of a large fly she was about to catch on a long, sticky tongue. So here we have our first question. By drawing a comparison between Umbridge and a toad, how is she characterized? So the way that you can get to this is just looking at how she's characterized. Characterization is usually very consistent in a passage. You're not usually, there are always exceptions, you're not going to have the author say, oh, she's really great, but she's really awful. Oh, she's really pretty, oh, but she's really hideous. Oh, she smells great, but she's also stinky. Unless you're dealing with antithesis, which you'll learn about hopefully already, if not later. So characterization is pretty consistent. So what is the author trying to say about Umbridge by comparing her to a fly? Well, she's large, she's pale, she's broad, she's flabby, she has a little neck, she has a wide mouth, she has a slack mouth, her eyes are large, round, slightly bulging, and it looks like she wants to eat the bow on her head. So does that mean the author wants us to see her as confusing? No, it's very clear what the author thinks about her, and it's very clear to the audience who she is. There's no confusion. Fervent. Now, we might not know what the word fervent means, so we might leave it. Repulsive. That seems like a pretty good answer. Speculative. Now, speculative means questioning, and she's not asking any questions here. She's very domineering. So if we were eliminating, we go down to fervent and repulsive, with repulsive standing out as the best answer. Fervent means like vigorous and intense and wanting to get something done and really, really focused. She might be that way, but that's not how the author is characterizing her in this passage. She's being characterized as being repulsive. Now, why does the author mention the black velvet bow in the provided excerpt? This is a pretty tough question. It's asking for you to really dig into the excerpt and figure out what the author is doing and why the author is including the information that she is. So when it says, even the little black velvet bow perched on top of her short curly hair put him in mind of a large fly she was about to catch on a long sticky tongue. So look at the language here. Even, which suggests contrast. Little black velvet bow, which suggests that it's dainty. And then we have this word perched. It's like a little bird. So here we see this bow as being dainty and beautiful and pretty and cute. But that doesn't even help her. She still looks like she's a frog who's going to eat that bow like a fly. So let's see which answer kind of shows what the author's doing there. It emphasizes Umbridge's vanity and obsession with fashion and beauty. It doesn't show that she's obsessed here. She might really like fashion. She is wearing the bow, but it's not emphasizing her obsession with fashion. That's incorrect. It foreshadows that Umbridge will lose the bow and punish her students until it is found. That could possibly happen, but there's nothing in here that indicates it for sure. Therefore, we're going to eliminate that. It shows that Umbridge can make something as innocent as a bow seem unpleasant. Yes, that is our answer. It symbolizes Umbridge's desire to do good in the world and ultimately stop impending evil. Not true. so our answer is